Did Blackbeard really blockade the entire city of Charleston just to get his hands on a chest of medicine? Or was the whole dramatic storyline just something the game invented? The Assassin's Creed franchise is famous for blending real history with video game reality. Let me show you what's real and what's fake. In this video, we will focus on real people and events, and how they were portrayed in the game, versus how they actually differ in the history books. Oh, and yes, consider this your official spoiler alert for the Assassin's Creed story, Blackbeard. Very little is known about Blackbeard's early life. It is thought that he was born around 1680 in the seaport of Bristol in England. Historians think his true name was Edward Thatch, or some variation of it, like Teach or Thack. Pirate customs at that time dictated that you use a pseudonym, or a fake name, while committing piracy, to protect your family back home. Because of this, his true name will probably never be known for certain. He started his career as a privateer for the British during the War of the Spanish Succession, which ran from 1701 to 1713 and was also called Queen's and Revenge. Remember this name. It was here where he got his first real experience as a sailor, operating in the area around Jamaica. After the war ended, he settled on the Bahamian island of New Providence. That is where he started his actual acts of piracy. And later, in 1716, he joined Benjamin Hornigold's crew. Hornigold is another famous pirate shown in the game, but I will speak more about him later. So Thatch and Hornigold worked together for multiple years. Thatch got recognized by Hornigold as a talented sailor, and after a while, he was given his very own vessel, which was a small sloop. Later on, Stede Bonnet, the famous gentleman pirate, joined up with the two of them. His ship, the Revenge, was eventually taken over by Blackbeard. This brings us to a huge difference between the game and real history. In the game, Blackbeard acts like a mentor to Bonnet and only takes command of his ship on a single occasion. The real history was much darker. Blackbeard quickly realized that Bonnet had absolutely no idea how to run a ship, so he essentially staged a hostile takeover. He convinced Bonnet to step down and live aboard Blackbeard's ship as a guest, while Blackbeard put one of his own loyal officers in charge of Bonnet's actual ship. Together they formed a flotilla of 3 ships, with each ship commanding approximately 70 men. Eventually, however, Hornigold decided to retire from piracy altogether and left Thatch in charge of all his men. Here is another big difference between the game and reality. Even though the game tells us what happened fairly accurately, the timeline differs a bit to make the game's story flow better. In the game, Hornigold only leaves Thatch after he gets his new title and his new ship, which he hadn't actually done yet in the real historical timeline. Also, Thatch helped Hornigold govern the island on Nassau when it was running as a pirate republic, but he soon gave up on the whole idea of governing, which was shown accurately in the game. Historically, later that year, Thatch's 2 ships ambushed a French slave frigate named La Concorde, which translates to Harmony in English. He cleverly took the heavy armament and cannons he had on his smaller sloop and put them onto the big frigate, ironically renaming it the Queen's and Revenge. This name was also a political middle finger to the British Crown because many pirates were former privateers who felt completely betrayed by the government. He gave his old, unarmed sloop to the remaining crew of La Concorde and set sail with his new flagship. He later equipped it with a massive total of 40 cannons, making it terrifying and famous across the world. Interestingly, Thatch was a marketing genius, and this was only one of the things that helped him be remembered in the history books. With his new vessel and a crew of around 150 men, he pulled off some spectacular new assault, capturing and raiding many ships that were much larger than his own. Even though he carried out violent and brilliant attacks, Fetch usually released his surviving captives. Henry Bostock, one of the survivors of an attack, was asked by authorities to describe Fetch. This is where we hear the well-known nickname Blackbeard for the very first time in history. This matches up well with the game's timeline.
Captain Thatch, as I live and breathe. What is this magnificent muzzle you've cultivated, eh?
Why fly a black flag when a black beard will do?
Later reports tell us that he would tie his long beard into braids, wear a sling over his shoulder that held 3 pairs of pistols, and stick lighted strings of fuse under his head. He did this presumably to look like a devil, just like they tell you in the game.
And would you be the devil?
For an audience, aye. It's all a big show. Give your quarry something to fear. Some hellish thing from a fever dream. And men will drop to their knees, pleading for their lord before all else.
Oh God. It looks fine.
Of course it does.
In Assassin's Creed 4, Blackbeard also has an interesting black flag that shows a skeleton stabbing a heart with a spear while holding up a glass to toast the devil. The real Blackbeard never actually saw this flag. This specific design didn't appear in print until an article in 1912, and it wasn't officially linked to Blackbeard specifically until around 1970. In reality, eyewitness reports from 1718 state that his ship simply flew a traditional minimalist black flag with a basic skull on it. Nonetheless, Blackbeard understood perfectly that the more fearsome he appeared, the more his legend would grow, making his enemies much more likely to surrender without a fight. It is very interesting to note that there is absolutely no historical record of Blackbeard ever executing his prisoners. His pure fierceness was the main thing that helped grow his massive popularity. The next big event Blackbeard is famous for is the blockade of Charleston. By 1718, his fleet grew even larger. He had a massive 4-ship flotilla, carrying roughly 400 pirates. This firepower was far greater than anything the entire colony of South Carolina could put together. Blackbeard dropped anchor right outside Charleston Harbor, effectively putting a chokehold on the city's maritime economy. For about 5 to 6 days, the pirates intercepted every single vessel trying to enter or leave the port. About 8 or 9 ships in total. They plundered the ships for gold, supplies and provision. But they also did something far more dangerously. They took hostages. Among the captured passengers was Samuel Wright, a very wealthy and prominent member of South Carolina Governor's Council. With a deck full of high-profile hostages, Blackbeard sent a threatening message to South Carolina Governor Robert Johnson. He made it clear, if his demands weren't met, he would execute all hostages, send their severed heads to the governor, and burn every single captured ship down to the waterline. But to the governor's surprise, he didn't demand gold, silver, or jewels. He demanded a chest of medicine. This is where the story in the game differs from history. In the game, it is thought he needed the medicine for the general population of the Pirate Republic of Nassau, and that the delay was an intentional trap by the government. In reality, historians assume that Blackbeard's crew was suffering from a massive outbreak of painful illness, most likely syphilis or yellow fever. They desperately needed medical supplies, including mercury and urethral syringes, which were the agonizing standard treatment for STDs at that time. Blackbeard gave the city 2 days to get the medicine ready and sent some of his crew to fetch it. But 2 days passed, and then a third. Furious, Blackbeard wanted to execute the prisoners, but it turned out the city didn't betray him at all. His crew members had just gotten blackout drunk at a local tavern and were late bringing the medicine back. True to his word, once the medicine arrived, he released all the prisoners. Later that year, Woodes Rogers, a former governor who is shown as a Templar in the game, came with a fleet of warships to offer the king's pardon to the pirates. Whoever accepted it was allowed to leave and work as a legal privateer, while the rest would be hung. A little bit later after that happened, Blackbeard's ship ran aground. Even though it was presented as an accidental hit on a sandbar, historians think it was actually an orchestrated accident by Blackbeard to intentionally reduce his crew numbers so he could take the pardon and keep more of the wealth for himself, and also because he believed he wouldn't get the pardon if he came with a threatening fleet. After he took the pardon, Blackbeard tried to live a quiet life, but after a while he got bored. So, through a clever legal loophole, he started pirating again. He would capture French ships out at sea and bring them into North Carolina, claiming they were just abandoned ships that he found. The corrupt governor of North Carolina didn't mind it, and so he made the island of Ocracoke Inlet his new home base. On November 21, 1718, he was attacked by the British Navy, who were unhappy with his return to crime. Blackbeard was lured by Lieutenant Maynard into attacking them, and after a fierce gunship fight, even though Blackbeard himself only had a handful of pirates left, he mistakenly thought Maynard's ship had only a few people left alive after the cannon battle. In reality, Maynard had kept a large amount of his men hidden under the deck. When Blackbeard boarded the ship, the hidden crew emerged from below. Blackbeard was quickly overwhelmed and struck down by the British. He died with at least 5 gun wounds. A legendary pirate was decapitated, and his head was placed on the bowsprit of the ship as a warning to other pirates. In the game, it is shown that he was retired and then suddenly attacked out of nowhere, which differs from the actual aggressive naval battle that took place in history. And so, this legendary pirate met his end. Benjamin Hornigold. Just like in Blackbeard's case, Hornigold's early life wasn't well documented. It is told that he was born in Norfolk, England, but this is unconfirmed. In his adult life, Hornigold began working as a legal privateer. He became very successful and was considered a good leader and captain. It is thought that he participated in Queen's Anne's War, and after the war came to an end, he was left completely without a job. It is around this time that he turned to piracy. He became very successful in his new profession, using his 30-gun sloop named the Ranger. He operated in the regions of New Providence and Nassau. Soon after, he took a promising apprentice under his wing, a man who would later be known to the world as Blackbeard. Together, Hornigold and Blackbeard captured many ships. Hornigold's fleet grew to a number around 5 vessels, with 350 men under his command. Hornigold was rather understanding with the people he captured and never seemed to execute any of his prisoners, simply because profit was the only thing that interested him. This is represented very well in AC Black Flag, as Hornigold is shown teaching Edward Kenway how to properly capture vessels.
Tell your friends we're stealing your goods, and we won't hurt nobody if everyone stays as still as a sandbar. You got that?
Please to repeat.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Historically, Hornigold had a strict rule. He never attacked British ships. His reason for doing this was perhaps so he could pretend he was still a legal privateer attacking enemies of England, or maybe he just didn't want to piss off a powerful British navy. Either way, his crew didn't want to follow his rules, and after a while, because they were missing out on opportunities to capture incredibly valuable British ships, eventually his crew voted to attack an English vessel. When Hornigold opposed it, the crew mutinied and deposed him as captain. So with only a few loyal pirates left and a small sloop, he tried to continue his pirate career for a while, but without much success. In 1717, Wood Rogers presented the royal pardon to the pirates. Hornigold, being an ex-privateer at heart, took the pardon right away. This is shown rather differently in the game. His crew doesn't turn on him at all. Instead, he simply accepts the pardon because he is tired of the complete lack of order and discipline within the Pirate Republic of Nassau.
Look on this as a stroke of fortune, lads. We should take the king's pardon and salvage what dignity we own.
The game also states that he became a Templar. In reality, Hornigold resumed privateering under the command of Wood Rogers, but this time he became a dedicated pirate hunter. He spent a year and a half hunting down his former colleagues, who naturally saw him as a dirty traitor. He got a massive reputation as a pirate hunter, and a lot of pirates were hanged thanks to him. However, he was never able to capture his closest former friends and crew, such as Blackbeard, Charles Vane, or Jack Rackham. This tracking of his old friends was well represented in the game when Kenway meets him following his betrayal. By 1719, his career as a pirate hunter ended dramatically. We don't know for sure how it happened, but some historical sources claim that his ship ran ashore during a violent hurricane, and that he and his men died there. However, there are other accounts that say his ship was wrecked on a reef and that he and his crew drowned right after. This part was altered heavily in the game. His sloop does run aground, but it happened while being chased by Edward. And then Hornigold is personally assassinated by Kenway, and so Benjamin Hornigold met his end.